Good morning or afternoon, or in some cases, evening. We got an email earlier this morning that we have someone from Uganda joining us, and it's 8 p.m. their time. So, greetings to all. We're excited that you're here. On behalf of Engaging Communities, our outreach of UTC School of Nursing, my name is Stephanie Blaine. Dr. Christy Wick will be joining us momentarily. And then, of course, we're so thankful to be able to partner with ENCORE Ministries to continue to be able to provide these monthly webinars. So we're so excited that you're here. I'll be sending some more information in the chat as our speakers present. So this morning you get to hear from Miss Pat with Wings of Hope, and then Casey and Jeff from the Enterprise Center. So I am going to turn it over to Miss Pat and let her tell you about the Wings of Hope ministry and herself. So I think you're in for a real treat with both of our speakers today. Miss Pat, I'll get your slides started and then you can take it away.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be with you all today. And I am the co-founder of Wings of Hope, Widows Ministry, where I'll give you a little bit of history of what occurred with Wings of Hope and how it came about. I was a school nurse, and I was seated in my clinic about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I received a call from the DeSoto Police Department. And right away, my brain went to, oh no, my daughter's gotten into a car accident. But no, the police officer, a woman that I just barely knew through a Bible study, had come home and found her husband dead, and that she requested that I would come and be with her. I went to my principal right away, told him the situation. He said, go ahead. But the strange thing was that I did not even know where this lady lived. And I really, throughout my life, had not thought about widows that much. The police gave me directions, and it was overwhelming. The ambulance was there, the police was there, several people standing in the room, but no one talking to Sue, who was the widow that had asked that I would be present. I just went up and hugged her. I didn't know what to do in this situation. But what came out of that whole experience was for about 3 to walk with her through her widowhood. And I found out what widows really go through. And the Lord just seemed to touch my heart that there should be a widow's ministry. I checked with churches, and by the way, how many churches within this listening audience, how many of you have widows ministries within the church? I would guess that very few of you do. But it's something to be aware of, and also communities. Stephanie, would you give me the next slide there, please? Wings of Hope has two wings, just like the logo. We have the eagle as our logo, and the one wing is churches, and the other wing is chapters. Churches, we go into individual churches, we encourage them to develop them, we educate them, and we equip them, and finally evaluate them. And with chapters, we go into communities and we discover groups of widows, an interdenominational group of widows who come together on a regular basis. Just like yesterday, I was at Franklin County Wings of Hope chapter. We had about 42 widows there. And what happens in those chapter meetings has been maybe widowed for, say, 7 years, can tell the recent widow just exactly how she walked through her journey. And this does give a help to the recent widow. Like I said, these are monthly meetings, and Wings of Hope both will come to churches or to communities to develop the chapters for widows within that community. And Stephanie, can you? The Wings of Hope statement is to promote Christ. And how do we do that? We do it through demonstrating our love and educate groups of chapters and churches and communities. And this is something that we hold true to. We try to love the widow just as the Lord Jesus. And next slide, please. Give you a little bit of background. Wings of Hope is an interdenominational ministry. It's biblically based. Our statement of faith is the Apostles' Creed. We are incorporated in the state of Tennessee as a not-for-profit ministry. We're recognized by the IRS as a 501c3 ministry, which means any donations that we have, you can declare. And it took us a while to get that IRS, but we've got it now, and we are recognized as an incorporation in the state of Tennessee. Next, please. WINGS is an acrostic, and it stands for Widows in Need Giving Service. The widow is first of all in need, and once she's gone through her journey of recovery, minister to other widows. So that's the part of the giving of service. Biblically speaking, a widow is any woman that's lost the protection and provision of her husband through death, divorce, desertion, imprisonment, or single mothers. That might be a new statement to you, but they have lost the protection and provision of their husbands. So, widow. The average age of a widow is 56. Now, when you think about 56, that's a woman that is probably still working. She probably has a family. She has children in school that she's trying to support. So there's big needs here in widows ministry, not only for those that have already raised their family, but for those widows that are in the process of raising their family. An baby boomer generation coming up, which means even more widows are coming into the generation. And Stephanie, can I have the next slide, please? She's doing a super job, isn't she? We need to talk about what's a ministry. You know, we have ministries all over the church. But the three dominant things that qualify a ministry is that number one, it meets a need, just like children's ministries. Widows also have many needs, and we'll be talking about those in a little bit later. It's done out of love, and God receives the glory for all of it because He works through us in a ministry. We don't do it on our own. The Lord Jesus Christ works through us. So when you're looking at ministries in your church, you can identify that they meet a need, they're done out of love, and God. Next slide, please. I really like this, and I know you all can hear me, but I cannot hear you naturally. But I sure would like you all to say this with me in the room where you're at. Just follow me in reading it, but also say it, because I think when we speak words, we incorporate them more into what we are believing and what we're stating. So, what is a ministry? job or ministry. A job is at your choice. A ministry is at Christ's call. In a job, you expect to receive. In a ministry, you expect to give. In a job, you give something to get something. In a ministry, you return something that has already been given to you. A job depends on your abilities. Let's remember that. That's very important. A job depends on your abilities. A ministry depends on your availability to God. And that's one of the goals I'm hoping today, that you'll make yourself available to God. A job done well brings you praise. A ministry done well brings honor to Christ. Next slide, please. So, how does the church minister to the widowed? I want you to think about, how does my church minister to the widowed? Are they ministering? Maybe they have luncheons, maybe twice, 4 times a year, but are they really fulfilling those needs? Something out of love? Yes, they might be doing something out of love when they have a fellowship dinner for the widows. And is God receiving the glory? Those 3 identifying factors that work in a ministry. And I would like you to just sort of examine your ministry when we're through with this webinar and see how much further. Maybe I can give you some ideas as we progress through this of how you can reach out to the widowed. Next slide, please, Stephanie. Okay, Wings of Hope. We can be invited to your church. When we're church, we'll encourage you, we'll educate you in regards to widows and their needs. We'll equip you. We will give you actual materials, the 1, 2, 3 of how to start up a widow's ministry. And then naturally, any ministry needs to be evaluated. And we will help you in that evaluation. We say when we leave a church that we leave with you everything that you will ever need to start up a widowed person. Next slide, please. And this is the encouraging part. We're all encouraged by reading scripture. And you probably are not aware of this, but widows are mentioned in the Old Testament 54 times. 54 times they're mentioned. In the New Testament, they're mentioned 26 times. And I've listed some of the key verses in Acts 6, 1-7. I don't know if you all recall that, but we just got through with Pentecost in the church, and Acts 6 is talking about the beginning of the church. Guess what? Widows ministry was the first ministry in the church. So why are we not following through if that was the first ministry in the church? 1 Timothy, if you want to write these verses down, I'm not going to go into detail with them, but there, Paul is talking to Timothy. 2 Corinthians, he's talking about that we need to help others through their comfort, that we receive the comfort from the Lord Jesus Christ. In Galatians, we're told to carry each other's burdens. James 1:27, it tells us that we are supposed to visit the widow and the orphan in their needs. And finally, if these words on the cross, his last words were to John, take care of my mother. In other words, he was saying, I want you to minister to my mother as I'm going back to the Father. Also, we have the whole book of Ruth, which is about widows. So, I mean, we receive our encouragement from the Bible. The Bible tells us to minister to widows. So, are we ministering to widows, either church? Next slide, Stephanie. Now, to educate you a little bit, there's a lot of education that goes into this. A typical workshop that I would be doing, we would be taking probably half of the workshop just educating you into widows and their needs. But just to give you a smattering of what education might help you out is ranking as stressful life events. The most stressful life events are number one and number two, divorce. And Dr. Tracy Galat has done some experiments on how women and men react differently to stress in their situations. And women, here's our excuse, we react 30% more than men do. So if you feel yourself getting stressful and the man is just sitting there being very calm, you can say to him, I'm a woman, I do. So what I'm saying in widows ministries, as widows, we react to stress 30% more than the typical widower. Next slide, Stephanie, please. We're going to go through some slides here, just sort of popping up to give you an idea about widows. The death of a spouse is the number one stressor in a person's life, with divorce being the second stressor. We've already said that. 80% of marriages, 80% of marriages, the wife outlives the husband. And I might add to that, 50% of divorces in the United States occur in marriage. And a very startling factor is that in the church, 50% of marriages end up in being divorced. Now, that is a widow. Remember, protection and provision of the spouse through death, divorce, desertion, imprisonment, and then single mothers. So 80% of the marriages, the wife outlives the husband. Next slide, Stephanie, please. And widowhood lasts on the average of 14 years. I have some friends that are widows that have been widowed for 30 years. They were widowed at a very young age, and so that's a long time. Oh, and there are over 14 million widows in the U.S. today. Now, keep in mind when I make this next statement, it's an average. You might have more widows in your church, you might have less widows in your church, depending upon the size of your church, but on an average of 40 widows for every church. And you will notice the subscripts underneath this. These are from various organizations. This particular one is from the AARP. Next slide, Stephanie. Upon the death of a spouse, a widow loses 75% of her support system. And where this comes from is that, you know, we are still a couple society. We're gradually leaning into a more single society. But when you go out to a restaurant, you could be sitting in church, you'll see that most people are in a couple's relationship. And widows all of a sudden are losing that support system of their husband, but also we call it shaking of the family tree, where the individuals on the husband side do not stay in contact with the widow. She loses all that side of the family. And so hers drastically. Next slide, Stephanie. widows have a 30% higher risk of death in the first 6 months after the death of their spouse. And you've probably heard of the broken heart syndrome. This is a syndrome that cardiologists have discovered that after the death of a spouse, we see a higher increase in death rates. If you know a recent widow, that you encourage her to get to the physician, get to her family doctor. That 30% of stress level is working on her. Immune systems go down, all systems, blood pressure goes up. So it's very important that a recent widow visit her physician after the death of a husband. Next slide, Stephanie. You're doing great back there, Stephanie. The poverty rate among widows is 3 to 4 times higher than elderly married women. Now, this is from the Social Security Administration. And I might say, with Wings of Hope here in Franklin County, we deliver food boxes to 80 widows in the community. These are widows that the money that they would receive or that they have for groceries, we deliver the groceries to them, charge them for electricity, heat, water, any of those other items. So there is a great poverty level with widows. Next slide, please, Stephanie. Okay, if I was at your church now, we would go through each one of these areas. I called a portrait of a widowed person. And it's the holistic approach that we use, the physical, the mental, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, and environmental. These are the recent widow and the seasoned widow. And then with this, I would say, don't walk away from the biblical mandate. Remember James 1:27, pure and undefiled religion before God the Father is this, to visit the orphans and widows in their trouble. Next slide. And this is part of the equipping we do is physical safety. Next slide, please, Stephanie. And this is one of the evaluation tools that we workshops. It's a good evaluation tool for those that are working in widows ministry to not lose a widow in the congregation. In other words, not be calling on them. And then the next slide. This is the verse that we've chosen for Wings of Hope and for widows, Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope on the Lord shall renew their strength. In other words, they lost their strength, and the Lord's going to renew that strength. They shall mount up, shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And that's the verses that we use both in chapters, and we encourage that churches also use this verse for their widowed persons ministry. Stephanie, I think the next slide is just giving information about who I am. I want the audience to be able to get this. If you have any further questions, I would invite you to go to my email. Also, I will return your phone call. As you might guess, I've been doing this widows ministry for 30 years now, and I sense it's a calling from the Lord. And we are here to help you in any way possible. Develop a person's ministry within your church, or if you are a widow, you would like to develop a chapter within your community, we will gladly come to you and help you do this. I appreciate all of you listening patiently.
Thank you, Miss Pat. Your presentation was wonderful. To all of those on, I'll be sending a recording and these slides out along with Miss Pat's contact information Your quote about what is a job versus what is a ministry was very impactful. I really appreciate that. And I think that we could probably all find that information very applicable. So I'm happy to share that. We will move on to Casey and Jeff with the Enterprise Center and their presentation with Tech Goes Home. I will let them introduce, and then if you guys want to ask any questions in the chat, feel free, and we'll take questions and answer at the end too. Again, thank you, Miss Pat, and Jeff and Casey, turning it over to you.
Well, hey, y'all. Thank you so much for having us. And Ms. Pat, and what a privilege to follow you. I was having a conversation with a colleague the other day, noting that that is job related. But, as we work in communities and even looking at the theme of this call, Powered by Connection, how often we distance ourselves from death and how isolating that can be when in reality, there is so much more life to enjoy together. So I thank you for all that you shared, and hopefully we'll be able to follow it up. My name is Jeff Milner. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Enterprise Center here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're an economic development nonprofit who works on making the things that drive our city forward accessible to everybody who lives here. And so one of our signature programs is Tech Goes Home, and I am joined by my colleague, Casey Miller, who I will kick it over to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you. And so I'm the Director of Program Evaluation for Tech Goes Home. We'll be telling you a little bit about that particular program here, but I have a divinity degree, and so I just really enjoy being back in a room with faith-filled folks. So thank you for letting us be here.
Dr. Wick, please note, I brought an expert. As we move forward, I mentioned the Enterprise Center. We're an economic development partner to the city, to the county. That's how we were started, but we've really started working across the state of Tennessee, and particularly with older adults. As I said, our focus is around the things that drive Chattanooga forward: entrepreneurship, connectivity, technology, all of these exciting things. But good things always happened in Chattanooga, and they've always happened in some places. We see our role as helping make sure they happen everywhere they can, that if we're investing in something, that it's meaningful to all of our residents, whatever their age. We focus these things through our digital equity and community connectivity work, which we're going to talk about today, around the innovation economy and workforce development, smart cities and civic technologies, and then even some civic storytelling and agency, where we're using platforms like this to share how you recycle, the new bookstore that opened up, the how to register to vote, and all these things that make living and let you have agency in a city like Chattanooga. I had Casey introduce herself, but Casey, your role here at the Enterprise Center has shifted a little bit. But one of the things that you helped head up was our partnership around older adults with AAAD, and I know Janet is on this call. I wondered if you wouldn't mind kind of reintroducing yourself in that context, and talking a little bit about Tech Goes Home.
Sure. So yes, I joined the Tech Goes Home team in March of 2020, which was a very exciting time to be part of any work trying to get people online, trying to get them the digital skills they needed. And so I started out working with pastors and in faith-based contexts to help them learn how to use tablets and learn how to get onto the internet so that they could set up a Facebook landing page, learn how to stream sermons, live stream sermons, set up their online ministries, and then through a pilot program with our Southeast Tennessee Area Agency on Aging and Disability. And yes, shout out to Janet Sullivan on this call. Janet was a more than a partner through this process. and has been with us from the beginning in this work. We worked with older adults in Southeast Tennessee, across the 10 Southeast Tennessee counties, in senior centers, to help them get connected to internet, get a brand new accessible device like a laptop computer, and then ran 15 hours of computer skills training tailored to older adults. So we set up that pilot work, and that's our Tech Goes Home model. Right there is, we try to connect people to affordable internet, connect people to an accessible device, something larger than the cell phones that so many of us rely on, but something that is a device that will adapt to any visibility issues, any dexterity issues. And then, so once people have connection to the internet, have a device, get them the digital skills training. We roll classes over weeks or even months to help people learn how to use those devices for whatever they need to do, whether that's during the pandemic, ordering groceries online and getting them delivered, being able to connect to your faith-based organization, your ministries that have been a connection point and also help sustain through all the anxieties and ups and downs and challenges of the pandemic, and also help folks connect to telehealth resources during that time. So that's our model, the 15 hours of classes, internet, try to get folks connected to affordable internet options and get them a free or low cost laptop computer. And we do this in partnership, always in partnership, because we are a train the trainer model. So we work with people on the ground in these communities. We train them to teach space, and it's more comfortable for the learners going through the classes to ask the questions and get them through over that initial anxiety hump that a lot of folks experience, especially our older adults, when they're thinking about learning technology, opening up a computer and turning it on for the first time in many cases. So we work with that familiar face, that community member to teach the class. And then the classes are hosted in a familiar place, in a local church, in a senior center, in a community center, library, a place that people are already going to or have transportation to. So it's accessible. So we are very, very much local in that way. We are based in Chattanooga, but we've been able to branch out statewide, and even beyond our initial Southeast Tennessee counties. We've been able to branch out statewide in the past couple years. And we have close to 300 community partners now, and 12,000 people have graduated from our classes, 12,000 plus. So we're very proud of that. That's the program in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. And I'll hit, I think, three things just very quickly. One is, right, as Casey said, no two classes are the same. It's not me, bearded, 30-something, dropping into a tablet and saying this is what you need to do with it. It's designed to understand what's important to you and how this technology can have the impact that you're looking for in your life. And that's true in every one of our classes, how you can connect to things that are important to you. And we'll push you a little bit on other things that might be helpful and you might not know about. But really, again, every 15 hours is completely different. So the branching parts of that are, one, if you're in Tennessee, there's a good chance that we're going to be able to work with a partner in your community to bring this class to you. And if you're not, we make all of our resources open source. So when Stephanie sends things out, we'll be able to send out kind of all the modules, all the training, the guides, all that kind of stuff that the team here has built. So I know there are folks from as far away from as Africa who are on this call, and anything that we can offer to be helpful. The goal of digital equity work is always not who does it first, but that it happens together, and that we all end up better connected with one another. Casey mentioned a little bit. I do really want to highlight the AAAD partnership, because it's one of those, as the United Way kind of called together all the nonprofits in Chattanooga as things started to shut down, highlighting a couple areas. Older adults were one of those task forces. How do we make sure people are connected to essential services, connected to each other, connected to life in general? So there are a few of us who spent a great deal of time on calls with one another, and my Kristen, who's no longer with AAAD, but she and I, it was 2 years before we were actually in the same room together, and we're presenting on stage and realized it was in fact the first time that we were standing next to each other. But through all that remote work with some tag end funding, just kind of pulling all our resources together, we were able to serve 10 different counties. The first time that we'd worked outside of Hamilton County on anything. 318 seniors, more than 15 different places that those classes were held, at the very height of the pandemic. And, we started with the idea of like, where do we do this so that it's successful, so that we, let's make sure all the conditions are right, all these sorts of things. Every single class had wait lists, every single site that we went to, folks were excited about participating. It grew in a way that we didn't anticipate. And we'll share a little bit more about that. But Casey, we'll go back and forth on some of these questions. I did want to ask, you talked a little bit about some of the work with faith-based communities during the pandemic. I want to ask you kind of like, what are some of the lessons from that period that are still shaping the way we're working with partners now, and helping folks connect to things?
Yeah, I think one of the major takeaways for the pastors and the church members and the other religious leaders and their congregants was that they, Ms. Pat said that, ministry is doing the Lord's work, and the Lord's work can work through technology, that it is possible to sustain and build connections even without the face-to-face interaction. That's so critical, and that we all longed for during the pandemic. But it is possible for ministries to do the good work of the church and of Christ, and sustain that connection that people need through their churches, that spiritual growth, that spiritual element. So for us, this was their technology related. The pastors were very anxious about it. Even those that were more tech savvy weren't sure, how their sermons were going to land through a Facebook stream, but they were able to communicate with each other in new ways, and also solicit donations through online giving platforms, and reach people across the world. In some cases, they had family or church members, families that were able to participate in that church service that were in Africa, that were just scattered. So it brought people together in new ways and exciting ways. And a lot of the churches we worked with virtual options for prayer circles, for online ministries. And so I think one of the major lessons was that church connections can happen and be very real, and the love of God and Christ can be grown through technology and through the connections sustained through technology, and that churches can grow and do ministry in new ways with technological tools.
I'll share, and I think one of the Tech Goes Home, right? It is technology based, but it's about those very real connections. It's about its impact on our physical world as well, on health, on entertainment, on education, on just the everyday elements of life. And so just two stories from exactly what you shared, Casey. I had a neighbor me to let me know that she'd started going to my church virtually because we were doing the best with the live stream. While we're all sheltering in place and things like this, a friendship and relationship grew from that. And then I had the opportunity to give a lay sermon in a completely empty church, which all of my jokes echoed horribly. It was rough, but it turns out my mailman also went to St. Paul's, and we'd never gone to the same service together. And for the next 3 years before he retired, every day, a conversation with him because he had listened to something that I had said. And I don't know, again, like how technology bridges, it's part of life. It's not about itself, and all the opportunities associated with that. So as we mentioned, we offer a lot of different kinds of classes. We've worked with individuals prenatal through, I believe, 103 was our oldest graduate, across those 12,000 folks who've been through a Tech Goes Home class in the last 9 years. But we've created some of these adapted classes. So particularly for older adults, just highlighting some of the things, making sure that the hardware element, all these things that we can take for granted, or if you haven't touched a computer in, honestly, in about 6 months, because that's how often things change, that we're thinking about that being a strong foundation. The accessibility features, as Casey talked about, and we've done classes for individuals who are blind or have low vision, who are deaf, who are nonverbal, and the ways in which even your basic Chromebook out of the box can help you access things differently than they could not that long ago. Certainly online safety, certainly things around cybersecurity. And we're not pretending like there aren't scary things out there. We want to make sure that you're able to access the stuff that you really need and want and makes your life better, while still feeling comfortable and secure accessing all those resources. And staying connected, building relationships, finding community, the basics, things that can just make your life a little bit easier: bill pay, grocery delivery, something that I still take advantage of. Telehealth, especially for managing care and things where if you're in a rural area of Tennessee and your option is a multiple hour drive to and from a hospital to see your doctor, and it's for something that can be handled with telehealth, we want to make sure that you feel really comfortable being able to do that. We work with some local partners around some of those assistive technologies, how we help convert senior centers like those AAAD runs into being a tech hub that has these kind of resources, that has telehealth resources available to you. And on both a temporary measure, how can we get you a hotspot so that you've got internet access at home, but also as an organization, how we're fighting for broadband access and better connectivity across the state, so that everybody can participate in these 21st century opportunities. Casey, I wanted to ask, from that partnership and how it's grown, some stories of participants and kind of how our participants really continue to shape the work and how it's evolved.
Sure. Oh gosh, the stories are always the fun part for me. So one of my favorites is there was one of our older adults who was a fairly frequent member of the senior center, but he was an ex-Marine and a retired Marine and a gruff, burly man. And he sat at the back of the Tech Goes Home class and he participated, but you could tell he was suspicious of technology and I just wasn't sure how the lessons were landing for him. And then we got to video conferencing, and he was able to video conference with his, he set up an appointment to video conference with his grandson, who was also in the military stationed in Japan. And the trainer who was helping him through this process and helping him log on and access the Zoom call with his grandson, just the big gruff former Marine was just in tears, being able to see his grandson. His grandson was in tears. He was in full, and just there wasn't a dry eye in the room. It was just the power of connection, being able to connect with family and friends across seas was so important for. It was so important for folks. Social isolation among seniors is such a deep concern. So giving them the tools and empowering them to be able to connect in new ways and even be able to see relatives virtually was such a rich, that's just a story that always stands out. And success for some of our older adult participants. We had a woman who was 99 in class, and she was determined, and we always do a share out as part of our class curriculum. So folks share out something that they learned at the end of the 15 hours that they're excited about. And her share out was she opened up her laptop, her new laptop, turned it on and logged in with her email and opened up email and just closed it. She knew how to exit out of the window and log off and shut down her computer. And she was thrilled with those building blocks. That was huge for her to have accomplished in 15 hours. And she had some tremors. We had to modify her device so that the mouse was more comfortable for her. And so just getting her to that point where she knew she could learn a little bit more, and she knew she had the support of her senior center and community to help her in the next steps to learn that computer. That was huge, and just a classic example of success for an older adult in one of our classes. And then on the other end of kind of the more advanced learner, we found with our Southeast Tennessee AAAD friends that we had a lot of older adults that had been using computers for quite some time, and they needed a refresher on the basics, but they were ready and eager to learn more advanced skills. So we developed a 2.0, a skill up curriculum for our more advanced older adult learners. And some of those participants were able to create websites for a barbershop that they had launched. One woman set up an Etsy account so she could sell her crafts online. And so entrepreneurship among older adults and giving them an outlet for their work and their creative energies and helping them monetize that as well. So the classes really are tailored to the needs and the interests of the people in that class, and we've developed curricula along the way and different modules that can be pulled and plugged in. We want to make sure all of our older adults walk away with a sense of feeling more confident around using their computer and safely navigating the internet. We want them to be able to use the basics of email, to compose an email, and with an attachment, and in the to and from, and the, the basic part of the text. So email basics, more confidence in using the device and using it safely, and basic internet navigation skills, and basic internet or computer setting skills. Those are our foundational skills. So we teach those, though, in a number of ways. And then we've developed a skill up class too for our older adults, that for those folks that have those foundations, to be able to really make progress toward their personal and professional goals. So we use a pre-survey and a post-survey after for our classes, and then we also do some surveying of our trainers, surveying of our partners like AAAD, for example, to make sure that we are tailoring the curriculum to the interests and needs of the people in the class, that we're training the people teaching the class adequately to know how to pick and pull and really listen for learner needs, and then that we're on track to meet the goals of the program. So it's a continuous feedback loop from the learners in the class, the people teaching the class, and our partners. And gosh, I think we're on probably our 10th iteration of the older adults curriculum, and then we've gone through a couple iterations of that newer skill up curriculum, but we're constantly evolving the work so that it fits the folks in the room.
That's awesome, Casey. I'm gonna we've got a few minutes left for questions. I will do a kind of quick jump forward to kind of where we're headed from all of that work, and all of your incredible work. So as Casey mentioned, what started as our little pilot with AAAD grew, thanks to the West End Home Foundation, and almost $1 million to serve more than 2,200 older adults around the state of Tennessee, in 38 counties, working with 12 large partners to make that happen. A cool partnership through the Trinity Health Foundation that we're looking for ways to scale as well. 180 graduates planned there that are going through telehealth training, learning more about how to get comfortable with all of the things that can help them stay healthier, quality of life, stay connected to physicians, and making sure that they're benefiting from being connected. And thanks to the state of Tennessee, as I mentioned, we are looking at maybe 10,500 graduates over the next couple of years, across the spectrum of classes we offer, across the state of Tennessee, but more than 39 partner organizations we're working with, starting in, we hope, July, to be able to launch some of these new classes. Some other work that the Enterprise Center is doing that I thought was relevant to folks on the call: we have a partnership through TVA in one of our neighborhoods with a number of older adults, and looking at ways to improve the built environment, both actual physical upgrades to older homes, but also the ways in which the Internet of Things, connected devices like smart thermostats, like air quality monitors, like getting alerts about when temperatures or smoke or things like that are unsafe in the home. So we've partnered with a number of different folks on, again, the ways in which technology and our lived life overlap with each other. And it's right before we get to questions and answer, I want to call out something that the Reverend Dr. Gensler sent out in the invitation, this email, about really the transformative potential of connected congregations and connectivity has in general for mental, physical, spiritual, emotional well-being of older adults and of all of us. Its potential to mitigate loneliness and isolation, healthy aging, and I think most importantly around this idea of the stereotypes that, you know, when we don't build technology that works for the whole spectrum of human experience, as I said, prenatal to 103, we are selling all of ourselves short. That there are folks experiencing telehealth and these rapid innovations for the first time they've ever been done at the most important time that the outcomes are strong. It was an organization where we're such evangelists for exactly what this highlighted. You know, how do we build things that work for everybody? Because those look like more connected, healthier, safer, happier communities. And I think his words were echoed by actually one of Janet's participants, who both called out, you know, the importance of technology and technology for health, for all of those things. Also, because we've got to give back. That if we stay connected, the rest of if older adults are disconnected, the rest of us lose out. That there's so much potential beyond just the on-ramps. So I wanted to always kind of end on that note of getting communities online makes stronger communities as a whole. It's not about individuals. It's about this incredible connective potential. So if there are any questions, Casey and I are happy to, but we really appreciate the opportunity to share some of the work that Tech Goes Home and the Enterprise Center are doing in Tennessee, and can share and offer to your communities for the things that are meaningful and matter to you.
Yes, I have a question. This is Thera Beeman, and I apologize for being late to the meeting. But do you come out to individual churches to teach these classes, or is there only particular areas where these classes are being taught and the seniors will have to go to where the class is being taught?
Again, it's sort of, the answer is always, it sort of depends, but we don't, if there is an interested partner in an area that we serve, you know, it's the train the trainer model. We are always interested in working with the most hyper-local version of this class, because that's what makes it meaningful. And Casey, if you want to take and run with that.
Yes, absolutely. And we do rely on grant funding for our work. And we have, as Jeff mentioned, a lot of our resources are open source. So you can do a lot with what we're able to provide just to anyone to kind of get yourself going. But we require grant funding in a large part to cover the costs of the devices for participants, as we do want to make sure everyone walks away from the classes with a computer or a laptop computer.
Oh, okay. I
This
didn't
is a question
understand
in
that
the
that was
chat
being
about where we are in.
offered.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
There was a question in the chat about our work in Shelby County. Off the top of your head, Casey, some of the partners there.
Sure. So we worked with, through the West End Home Foundation, we worked with Meriton and South Germantown Road Baptist Church, no, Church of Christ, excuse me. And in starting this fall, we will be working with some churches in Shelby County. They haven't been identified yet, but that's through First Baptist Cares, nonprofit based in Chattanooga that has connections across Tennessee. So we will be offering classes coming the fall in Shelby County, and we hope to do more in Shelby County. We've got some really good partners in the area, just looking for the right opportunities. Any other questions for us? And yeah, please do reach out if you our emails are there. You can reach out for specific programming questions or partnership questions.
Thank you guys so much. Great information. I think that you also will have some follow-up questions, which is also great. So we'll send an email with the slides, the recording of the presentation, and contact information for everyone. We're able to stay on for a minute if there are any additional questions. But again, thank you, Ms. Pat with Wings of Hope. And thank you, Jeff and Casey with the Enterprise Center. Please follow up with any questions. And then our next curveball, our next webinar is June 11th. So it's the only one that's not on the third Tuesday, and I'll send out a reminder email with that. So June 11th. And if you don't have any questions between now and then, we'll see you then. It looks like everyone's logging off, so I'm just going to go ahead and end. But thank you guys again so much. It was good to see you and have a great week.